Welcome to another episode of the Church Things podcast, where, believe it or not, we talk about church things, specifically pertaining to Central Christian Church, which is the church that we are a part of. I am Braxton Schulte, and today I'm joined by Maddie Hardwick, Josh Paget, and Whitney Paget. And today, the goal is the same as it always is for us to give you a glimpse behind the scenes of the daily life of Central Christian Church. And so this is just an open dialogue about an important topic that we believe affects the life of our church. And today that topic is, what do we do when our kids don't want to go to church? This is a topic that is pretty common, and that's why we're bringing it up. Anything we talk about on this podcast is because it's real life stuff. And sometimes our kids don't want to go to church, and we know that. And so the first thing right off the bat we want to say is this is common, and so this is you. You're not alone. And so today we want this to just be a helpful conversation for you to be able to discern some good answers to that question, knowing that not everybody's going to land on the same answer to this question. We'll be honest there. But we want to be helpful voices in this conversation. So let's start with, why do we think this happens? Why do some kids not want to go to church sometimes?
Our kids are still small, so the option isn't always theirs. But sometimes if they don't want to go, there's some sort of anxiety behind it. They forgot their memory verse, or they forgot to do something that was asked of them, but it's not all. They almost always are excited to go play.
Yeah, good. Maddie, what do you think?
My daughter Chandler is also small, and she's an extrovert to the point of being weird. And so for her, she enjoys coming to church just for the people. When I was younger, I'm a pastor's kid, and when I didn't want to go to church, it was because I thought my parents were making me so that they would look cool in front of their pastor friends.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember that, but apparently that was something I said. So I didn't want to do it just because it felt obligatory because of my parents' status within the church.
Yeah.
That there was we have to go because it's a job, and the whole family was employed to do it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a real thing. And I think what we're starting to see is the age of somebody really plays a factor in this. And so, for me, as a student pastor here at Central, I hear a little bit of different things, like I'd rather sleep in that day, or I stayed out late last night, or my friends aren't there, that I'm the only one from my school that goes here. And so I think there's a lot of different various factors to why this is an issue. Josh, what do you think?
Well, when you asked the question, I had a thought of trying to think back when I was a child going to church, because my parents took us to church quite a bit. So I was a shy little kid, kind of a reserved kid, and I didn't feel like I was in a comfortable place when I went to church. And so I had a little bit of anxiety going to church and being around people who I didn't really have a relationship with. So, yeah, that's the first thought that came to mind for me, just maybe a little anxiety and maybe a little bit out of place.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about sometimes what feels out of place is, for some kids, they haven't chosen to believe what we're talking about yet. They haven't chosen to believe what the parents believe, what we believe, or what the preacher is saying, or what the youth pastor is saying. And so that can be a real thing where they're not sure that they believe this yet, which then can lead to them feeling like this is boring. I don't know if you ever remember that, if your upbringing of feeling like what you're sitting through is boring and not for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. But the thing about Central I like with the two services is that, our kids can come and be a part of the service and get comfortable there, and then they can go and be a part of the children's church with their friends. And so we can do all that as a family. And so that's a vital part of what we kind of value.
Yeah. There is that thought of there's multiple parts to what we mean when we say come to church. Mm-hmm. Does that mean Sunday morning service where you're sitting with the adults, or does that mean kids ministry? Does that mean student ministry? Does that mean it can mean a lot of different things at Central. There's a lot of things going on. Any other thoughts on why, just as a whole, maybe from your experience or from what you hear of others, why kids sometimes don't want to go to church?
I mean, primarily as children, it's either not the popular thing, or their closest friends aren't there, or it's weird, or it's kind of an outward perception of why they wouldn't want to go. But with ours being little, we haven't had to strong arm them into going yet. They're really still excited about going.
Yeah. You mentioning that realizes there are unfortunately, sometimes there's some stressors to being a part of a church, especially at that young adolescent age, that sometimes we may forget as comfortable adult, sure of where we are in our faith and what we believe and the body believers that we're a part of. But that's an age where there can be stressors that they're not even thinking about the right things when they're coming to church, and so therefore they're making some different decisions that we would about being here. So that leads me to wanting to ask you this. Is church valuable? And so if we're going to push in this podcast, and what we believe is that, yes, we want our kids here of all ages, we probably should start with answering the question, why is church valuable?
There's a multitude of reasons why I think church is valuable, Braxton. I think the first being because the gospel is preached at church, and that's the way we base our lives, is on the gospel. We believe that Jesus came and died for our sins and rose again, and that we have salvation in that. And so I think that's a really important part of why church is so valuable.
Absolutely. This is where we proclaim the gospel unashamedly, and the truth is proclaimed every Sunday. The word of God is used, and so that alone would be enough. But what else? I think there's more.
I think you want your kids around, even if you don't think they're paying attention or whatever the situation may be, they're hearing it. So even if they're not participating, or they're still in the middle of it, they're hearing it, they're seeing it, they're watching it happen around them.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, too, a lot of things in the spiritual world are communal, and worship is included in that. So we can have a personal relationship with Jesus, but there's something about worshiping collectively within the body that is so important, because, like, when I was growing up, I didn't want my parents to be my mentors, and I also didn't grow up around extended family. So I didn't have aunts and uncles or grandparents in town. And the church was that for me. And so it really is like being a part of a family, having my own mentors who I get to choose, that I don't have to just choose my mom or my dad. And I think that's really important to exemplifying what the Christian life is. Bringing your child into the church shows them how to live a life dedicated to Christ, because not only do they get to look at you as a parent, they get to look at their spiritual aunts and uncles and their spiritual grandparents and their spiritual cousins and all of these different people who feed into what their relationship with Jesus will look like at the end of their life.
Yeah, I like that because I believe it, and I've experienced it too, where I pitch this as student pastor all the time, talking to parents of, I want to be the advocate. I want to be another person in their student's life who's pointing to Jesus, for someone to be able to believe that and to notice that it's not just my family who believes this stuff, that there are people that I would look up to, and then when I hear them also pointing to Jesus and saying the same things that my parents would say, sometimes we hear it better from somebody else that we're choosing, that feel like we have the option of hearing, rather than being forced by our parents. And so, yes, being able to do life together is a pretty important part of being a part of a church, and why we would value the church. And I think of you guys specifically, you help in the children's ministry, and so you are becoming one of those people for even my daughter, that she can look to and say, it's not just my dad who says this, it's Josh and Whitney.
So that's a really great point, Braxton, because I was thinking about my children specifically, but they pick up on things that we do around the house, whether it's good or bad, and sometimes that stuff comes out in just day-to-day life, and you're like, "Holy cow, what was I doing?" But the more you focus on doing what you're supposed to be doing what God calls us to do, and being at church and being in part of the body, I think our kids start to get more comfortable doing the same things. And kind of to go back on your first question, I think for me, part of that is the attitude of the parent can lead to the child not wanting to be part of church. And so as a parents, Whitney and I, we have to be very cautious of our attitudes toward going to church and serving in the church and making sure that's positive and it's wholesome and it's real, like you said in the beginning, how it needs to be real, because the kids can pick up on that. And the more that we practice that, and thank God for that ability that He gives us, then they'll start to kind of build their own idea of what church is and how valuable church is.
That's a great thing to point out, that when we go home from church, that's not a place or a time to constantly express our negative thoughts,
Right.
Or our opinions that seem to be against the church, because our kids are always listening, no matter the age, and they are absorbing in what they see us value. It really directs what they value, more than they would even say. So that's huge. How we speak, how we value the church as adults, that has to be in play if we're going to ask our kids to value the church. They have to see it modeled by us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say too, just piggybacking off of that, church matters because the church matters to Jesus. We matter to Jesus. And so to be a Christian means loving the church. And it's really difficult right now. I can't imagine having small children in this era where evangelical is becoming a thing.
It's frightening.
It's so dumb. And sorry, it's so dumb.
It is. I agree.
Because children are getting on social media younger and younger, and they're seeing these things from maybe people that they idolize who are not in church, who are living their life and then bashing the church. And so they're picking up on things all over the place. And I mean, adults are too. And so if something happened, church hurt, if something happens within the church when a parent is a child and they just hold on to it forever and ever and ever, and now all of these things are coming out where the church is being picked on and picked apart, well, how tempting is it for the parent to go along with that and then bring that up with their child? Where if we don't respect the church, if we dog on her and think that she is worthless, one, how disrespectful is that to the Lord? But two, why would we expect our child to respect her also? And so if the parent doesn't love the church, why would we expect the child to love the church? So.
No, you're right. I think that is very evident in a lot of what we see in our culture, and we don't want that to be the case for ourselves. And I think we have to be careful of what we've been talking about, that this is something that Jesus has designed. That this is his bride, and this is a way that we are held accountable. The church holds us accountable, and we need the other voices. There's days where my faith in Jesus is not as strong as I would want it to be, and left alone, that's a snowball in the wrong direction. But when I can come to church and someone else can be my strength, be the one pointing out the beauty of the church and not the flaws of our church, because we get that so easily and often in our culture and in what we're watching in social media. For those that are non-believers and sometimes believers, negativity towards the church on my bad days can snowball into something that is where I'm not even wanting to go to church myself, let alone trying to convince my kids to go to church. And so that's huge. And so if we as believers can see in the Word of God that the church is valuable, then it should be valuable as us for adults. And when something's valuable for us as adults, I think we can use our authority. In this phase of life, having kids, whether they're teenagers, whether they're elementary age or younger, this is a God-given design where we have been given the role of using our wisdom and life experience to say, this is what we're doing because it's valuable, and that's going to snowball in the right direction.
Sometimes as parents, when there's all the negativity going around, your first response might be to keep them home or hide them or try to do it all yourself. But as the church, you have so many other people that pour into them. You don't have to do it by yourself. So another reason to come to church would be for help. So you have other people to pour into your children as well as you.
Yeah. I want to pick up on that one a little bit because your answer assumes that they're involved in other ministries, not just hearing a sermon on Sunday mornings. And so, and to be clear, what we're talking about is not just we hope that you attend a service. Yes, of course, but it's going to be harder to answer this question honestly and seeing the value unless it is, no, you're involved in serving together, you're involved in 242. When we say church, it's those things, in ministries, kid ministry, student ministry, because that's when you're going to have that interaction with others, not just sitting and expected to listen.
Right. I think that's a really good point, Braxton, because when Whitney and I were talking about this, part of the reason why we take our kids everywhere with us when we serve at the church is because we don't want them to just be bystanders there or playing with their friends. We want them to be actively involved in whatever we're doing, whether it's serving food or whether it's delivering stuff to the elderly or whether it's helping another kid learn their memory verse in Sunday morning class, or, we've had crying kids at 242 before, and if they can come for those crying kids at 242, I mean, that's what we're building here, is we're building our church, that way. And so that's very important to us too.
Yeah. That's a perfect transition into what I want to ask next, which is, so if church is valuable, then is it a commitment? Is this something, there's a lot of valuable things that are in our life that can also, it can just be a one-time thing or a option that we see value towards, but is church supposed to be a commitment? Can we expect that of our families and ask that of our kids?
So I might take it a step further, Braxton, and just say that it's an expectation that we go to church as a family and that we serve together and that we worship together and that we love people together. And so I do think it should be a commitment because, as you said earlier, our jobs are our commitment. We are committed to going to our jobs every day. And if I'm, excuse me, if I'm committed to showing up at my job every day, we're certainly going to be committed to showing up at church every day because we believe that is the most important part of our lives.
Yeah.
I think it should be a commitment, but also a priority. I mean, you can't. He works Monday through Friday, and since Avery's been born, I've worked every Saturday, and it's very easy to find something else to do on Sunday. Very easy to want to go hang out as a family or sleep in or do things that we could have done on Saturday if I didn't work. But as a priority, we get up, and you have to make church a priority.
Yeah, and as a believer myself, this question is interesting because we realize that not everybody that we're talking about when we talk about our kids are believers yet. They haven't made a decision to submit their life to Jesus. But we can't let our kids dictate our relationship with God. And what I mean by that is because I have chosen to believe in Jesus, it is a commitment and expectation for me as an expression of how I live out my faith, how I'm faithful to my faith. Church is vital for that. And so, when our teenagers don't want to come to church, if they haven't made a commitment to Jesus, well, I have, and I'm going to gladly help them to see what that means for me. But if they have made a commitment, we have kids of all ages who have made a decision that they want to follow Jesus, and they can start looking at that I don't know, what kind of expectations were there on you guys as kids as far as, were you expected to go to school? Were you expected, if once you got a job, there was not like, well, I'd rather not go today. If you sign up for a sports team, it's like, I know a lot of parents is, once we've made this commitment, we are doing this, we're finishing this. So I agree. And I think that we can see that in a lot of other areas of our life, that it's worth the commitment.
I'd even argue that it's a necessity, thinking about the kids who aren't Christians yet. It is necessary for their butt to be in a seat on a Sunday morning for their eternity, because souls are on the line for the kids who don't know Jesus.
Yeah.
And it is a dire necessity, because it really is a life or death thing. If we truly believe that is what Jesus has done for us, and that is what we are getting together every Sunday to proclaim as a body, then we should be dragging our child to everything Jesus related, so that they know who he is, and that one day we can live with them in eternity forever and ever and ever in the glory of God.
Yeah.
And that's important. And so it is a commitment, but it's a commitment that's not, I don't know, sometimes when I don't want to go to work all the time, and it's important for my family, for my child, also for me, because I'm an extrovert and I need the people time. I can't be home alone all the time. And church is even more important. And I want Chandler to know that. And on the Sundays that I don't want to come to church, like you said earlier, I get to rely on the faith of other people to have enough faith for me on the Sundays that I'm doubting. And I want her to know that.
Yeah. And while I don't want to be pushy in those moments, I have to remember what has been my personal experience. Take kids out of the equation for just a moment. Thinking about my personal relationship with Jesus and what the church has meant for me, there are Sundays where I don't have the best outlook, or would say, if I don't really want to be there, I'm not looking forward to what I'm going to get out of church. I'm not expecting anything to happen, but then I walk away having loved what I experienced. Whether it be experiencing the worship or hearing the word of God, which is living and active and does something in my life that I did not expect. When I come and faithfully submit to being here, no matter if I wanted to be here or not, or expected anything out of it, sometimes God does amazing things, because it's a room full of people who love Jesus and are filled with the Holy Spirit. And when the Holy Spirit is involved and other Christians are involved, things can happen that you don't expect. And so I think instead of letting our kids slide into, I don't want to go, and then you're wrestling with what that means for you, is, well, yeah, I guess I don't want to push them away from the church. I get the wrestling. But from thinking of our own experience, God can do things in those moments when you are faithful to being here, when you use your authority as a mom or dad to bring your kids.
Absolutely. You know, you said something in there, Braxton, that kind of, I brought it back a little bit to that whole thing that you just talked about is rooted in obedience for me. Like, I come to church and we bring our family to church because Scripture tells us to be in church. And so if God is convicting me, then I'm called to obedience. And so it's as simple as that. Like, we're here because that's what God asks us to do.
Yeah.
So even as parents, no matter what age your kids are, young, adults, maybe even a grandparent, you have to lead by example. So if you don't want to go, or maybe they see you that, oh, well, mom's tired this morning, but she's still getting up and she's still going to church, then, I mean, repetition. They see you do it over and over. It becomes a thing that maybe they want to emulate.
Yeah. This is getting into the practical answers. And so I want to move that direction of, okay, if this is a valuable thing, if this is an expectation, if this is something we want to make a commitment, and let's talk and brainstorm about a few practical things that we can do when this happens in our families. What do we do? I mean, you mentioned making this a positive habit, something that we're just going to do. What else?
With younger kids, you can remind them what what are some fun things? Remember some fun things you do at church. Mr. Jeff or Mr. George, Mr. Josh, somebody has always got something crazy planned for that day. I mean, there's always playtime, there's story time, there's crafts, you just have to remind them that it's not just getting up early and having to get ready to go somewhere, that there's fun waiting for them and learning opportunities. And that's for young kids. I don't,
Okay, so then
yeah.
you mentioned earlier, that being drugged to church, the whole idea of, my parents are pastor. So in the midst of all of that, is there something that they did right or something you look back and say, well, this is why I went, or this is why that changed my attitude about it?
Well, so it's so funny. I love my parents. We're going to start there. Love them so much. They are my friends now, which...
Now.
Yeah, now. Because,
Yeah.
when you're a snot-nosed teenager, why would they... Yeah, anyway. But I think it changed for me when you became my youth pastor. Because the age that I was when I started getting frustrated going to church was when I was in the youth group, when my dad was still my youth pastor. When he was the one who was... He was directly over my spiritual formation as a child, but at home and at church. And it changed for me, I think, around 9th grade, which is right around the time that you started, when it started becoming, okay, there's a new youth pastor. I have to get to know them. I want to hang out with their child. My friends are I had the best group of friends growing up. They're all a year older than me, so they're all going to this new 242 group that Braxton opened up. And I'm so excited. I want to go to that because you can't go until you're 16. And I'm a year younger than all of my friends, so I was missing out for a year. It was very sad. So it really changed for me when we started being grown-up kids, when we could start driving ourselves, when if we didn't get to see each other at school that day, we knew, okay, it's Wednesday night, so we're all going to go see each other tonight. I'm so excited. I want to hear how band was for them this week because they're on the other side of the football field and I didn't get to see them, or, oh, they got chewed out this morning. I can't wait to hear about what happened in their brain. All of those things. And so my parents, the thing they did right was setting this foundation for me where it was an expectation, it was the commitment, and then it became real when I had somebody new. And so, I don't know, thinking down the line, if it's not working for me telling Chandler, hey, it's time to go to church, maybe it's time to introduce somebody new who loves the church and who loves Jesus, who can take her under their wing and actually introduce them to Jesus in a way that I haven't been able to as a parent because they're so close. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you're so close to the picture, you can't see what it really looks like. Yeah. And so bringing somebody else in, I think was the thing that I needed to really have a deep, meaningful relationship with Jesus that has brought me to where I am now.
And that's a humble, really good realization and a practical thing for a parent to realize. As different stages of life and parenting gets more difficult. How are you going to navigate this teenager who is wanting some more independence? And what you just described, I think, is perfect. Where maybe a practical step is allowing your student and encouraging your student to have other relationships with trusted adults. And that can happen at church. And so it's a transition from attending with me to letting others invest in your kids.
Yeah, generational friendships are necessary to development.
Absolutely.
Even as adults, being friends with people who are in their 40s or 50s or 60s are really beneficial to me. And so to have an adult in their 20s, 30s who are pouring into your teenage children is so important.
Yeah. And that can happen It's awesome when that happens organically. It's more difficult when there's not those natural connections. And so maybe another practical step for us as parents is kind of some behind the scenes prompting with other adults in the church. You've got friends, we've got friends in the church, and asking Josh, hey, would you talk to so and so? Would you strike up a friendship? And we as adults need to be willing to serve our younger generations in that way, to invest in them because of what you just described. And other things that I was thinking on this is just practically, we want to, in our home, be talking about our kids' church experience throughout the week. Open and honest dialogue that they're free to say what they're thinking. And hopefully some of those great stories come out that we can reinforce and encourage, and they don't have to be like worried that, because I think sometimes teenagers at least get worried that what they're enjoying about church, what they're going to describe to mom and dad, is this cool friendship more than the lesson. But if we can come alongside and support even that, of like, man, I'm loving those friendships and asking about your friend and talking about it at home could be really big.
Totally agree. And to the point where sometimes I say, hey, let's go do this together. It's a church event. And they'll say, well, are Brindley and Archer going to be there? We're like, yes, they're going to be there.
Yeah, Braxton's a pastor. They have to be there.
And so that's an easy out for us because my kids love being around Brindley and Archer. And so I think you got to find whatever you can to make it evident to your kids that they can come and be a part of church and it be a good time. It doesn't have to be, we just have to go to church. No, you go to church, we get to worship together, you get to be around Brindley and Archer, and you can have a good time worshiping God and following Jesus. And that's a really important part of it, I think.
Yeah. Value your faith and the church at home, always, and openly talk about it.
Yeah, and I know we've mentioned this a couple times already, but mom and dad, if you do not believe in Jesus, do not expect your child to believe in Jesus, because if it is just out of, Christian nominalism or Christian atheism, where you are just a Christian for a label because we're in the Bible Belt, that's what you do. They will smell you out so quickly, and it will not. Their eternities are not going to be benefited. You're not going to push them toward Jesus if you don't even believe in him.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this podcast and you are just in church because that's how you grew up, and maybe your husband or wife is really into it and you just don't care, you need to have a face-to-face realization with the Lord before ever expecting your child to.
That's great truth.
And it's scary because there are people in our churches who do not believe in God, and they are here just to be here.
Yeah. We are not a Sunday club that you want your kids to get involved in for whatever benefit you think this is.
Yeah. It's not a babysitting service.
No.
It is real life, real community with people who believe in Jesus, and
every day.
Yeah.
Jesus matters, and
Absolutely.
we need him.
Yes.
We need him as parents, as individuals. Our kids need him. We need saved. And we can get led to that understanding and knowing what that means in a church community. Well, I've loved the conversation and the dialogue. As we begin to wrap up, I just want to allow everyone listening to know that I hope you've heard that this is a big deal. This isn't just something that people struggle with at different phases of life. So one, if that's you, know that you're not alone. This is something that is a common conversation happening throughout our church, and not just our church. That question, what do we do when our kids don't want to go to church? We want to say you're not alone, but also that it's really important. And it is worth continuing the conversation and figuring the answer out, because our relationship with Jesus is the most important thing that we could instill in our kids' life, and it's worth answering the question. So we want to make an open invitation to continue this. Send us an email, text us, find us at church. We want to be able to help you to do that. For me, that's part of why I'm here, that I want to be an advocate to parents being another person who's pointing them to Jesus, not just mom and dad. And so we want to help you answer this question, no matter what stage of life your kid is in. And so with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for caring about things that matter. And we hope you join us on another episode of Church Things.